Good evening, every pony, and welcome to Commentary as Magic Stream for today, Sunday, June 4th. We are, as always,
Big Cheese.
our cat.
Ivory Starlight, and we have a special person with us today.
Hello, I'm Cursedchords.
Hey.
Oh, well.
Always a pleasure to be on with you guys.
It was a pleasure
Good
to have you.
you.
Grandpa's is off doing
Work.
Grandpa's things.
pausey things. Let's see what I did there. So, it's a little bit of a different mix this time. But, we have something going on today that Cursed's been doing for years, really. And, you really just don't get enough credit for this. Now, those of you who frequent the subreddit have probably seen Cursed's series called Adventures in Deckbuilding. If you're unfamiliar with this, or don't check out the Reddit much, we'll drop a link in chat for you. Now, the first question, I think, just to give some background to viewers who maybe aren't familiar with this yet. Cursed, what is Adventures in Deckbuilding?
Sure. Yeah, so Adventures in Deckbuilding is a series of blog posts where I effectively challenged myself to build a new deck every week with a randomly chosen main character. And then, build the deck, write a short little write-up on why I made the choices I made and how I expect this deck to play, and then post it, on Reddit and on the blog that you just linked. Started, as you said, years ago, back in September of 2015, just after Equestrian Odysseys came out. And it was originally every main in the game, one deck for every main in the game. I got there. I extended it to two mains for every deck, two decks for every main in the game, and now we're on 3 decks for every main in the game. After I decided that 2 wasn't enough, I believe it was when core became a thing, and I wanted to redo core legal decks for the mains that I was already done with.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so this is each time you're adding yet more mains, or did you go back and actually do 3 for all of the new mains?
I did, yes.
Yeah. So the main pool, I think, has expanded quite a bit since right after EO. Now, I think most of us would probably argue that the mains that have come out since then are significantly more functional.
Yep. Based on the spreadsheet, it's like 84, I think, total mains in the game right now.
Are there really that many now? Wow.
Technically 82, 80. Some got banned, so it's like 81 or something, I think. Spiritual
successors, and the 2 of them that just needed to go bye-bye. Of course, Fluttershy's on strike 2.
Yeah, how many?
Fluttershy is on house arrest.
I haven't even written it down in the spreadsheet now. Going Confidence / Stunning Wonder /
What's the new name?
Hidden Strength.
Hidden Strength.
Like every time it happens, her name gets a little bit more.
It's just that Fluttershy card.
Wait, the incredibly rare one? Yeah.
And so, I guess a couple of other things have changed since I started. Now, there's 4 mains that are later than Odysseys. That is Adventure Legal or Core Legal. I'll always build in sort of the newest format that they're legal for, the most restrictive format, I suppose I should say. Mm. So core decks for the core mains, adventure decks for the adventure mains, harmony decks for the harmony mains. And if it's not the first time that I've used a main, there's a 20% chance that it is forced to be a pauper deck, if the main's pauper legal.
That's kind of spicy.
It's been interesting sometimes.
Okay.
I started doing that, I think, when Pauper became an officially supported format. Well, because it made sense to support it in that case.
Yeah. I suppose that does make sense. So your charter, though, has always been very main-centric. Right, now, the hypothetical 2 mains per 1 deck format, I'd like to see this. That sounds like a good April Fool's post.
It would... there are some interesting things that start happening when you're allowed to have 2 mains around.
Yeah. But broadly speaking, the decks that you are building are very, here's a main. Well,
Yeah.
where do we go from there? There's not a whole lot of, well, here's a set of cards, here's maybe an archetype, although I think that some of your restrictions start getting a little bit more interesting here, but it's still main-centric. So what inspired that?
Yeah, so you're right. The write-ups sometimes wander into, these are some cards I looked at this week, largely when the main is just completely uninteresting. So the choice of going from mains was basically, it came down to a bunch of different factors. So for one thing, when people talk about deck lists, the main is usually a pretty important part of it. People talk about Sky Star Blue, Blue No White. Like, it's always there as an integral part of what the deck is all about. And certainly at the time when I was building decks, that was largely the process that I used. I would start with a main. It is usually the foundation of whatever your deck strategy turns out to be, and just kind of go from there. And it also presented at the time it was not that many, 30, 40 something. A reasonable enough list. I created like a mid-size set that I could say, okay, I'm going to do one for each of these, and it's like big enough to look kind of ridiculous, but still quite achievable.
Right, and then 8 years pass, and the number of mains doubled, and now you've got multiple formats.
Yeah, that happened. And it's been, unfortunately, it's been on and off lately. The number of mains in the game isn't the only thing that changes in 8 years, and you find yourself with less time to do these things sometimes. But I try to put one out whenever I can. I do intend to finish it. I think I've got like 30 or so left to go, provided no more mains come out.
Most of the way there.
Yeah.
Next supplement, all mains.
100 new mains.
That's only going to be about 18. Maybe Diamond Song can finally have her Just Yona main. Gen 5 mains?
Just Yona main.
I'd appreciate that.
I would like an Izzy main.
I want a Nyx main.
I also want a Nyx
All right,
main.
no, we're canceling this whole project. Go back. Reverse course. I will turn this car around. At least initially, I recall that your posting schedule was aggressive. I think it was once a week.
It was, yeah. It was once a week, every Friday. If you miss a week, due to the next week. And I managed to stick to it for a long time. I don't remember when. I do remember what was my first penalty post, so I can actually figure it out. Give me a second.
Imagine if we had to do 2 streams in 1 week if we missed one of our dated weeks. Bet Ara would love that.
Okay, yeah. So yes, it was 128 weeks before I missed one.
That's a pretty good record.
It's what, 52 weeks in a year, so
2.5
years ain't bad.
No. It's quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, it required some interesting stuff sometimes. Like there were a few times when I was traveling on the road or whatever, and I would post the deck from the hotel at the end of the at the end of the day, or something like that. But like certainly once you've done 100 in a row, it's you really don't want to break that streak, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's hard work, especially if you get to the point where at 128 in, you're talking about revisiting mains at that point too.
Yep. Yeah, and I suppose it bears pointing out that like I tried to keep things fresh to the extent possible. I wanted to have each, like, well, when I started repeating decks for mains, to have the new decks be different and kind of, yeah, different ways of exploring that particular main character, so I wasn't repeating myself.
Right. I mean, you can build. I was about to say Bluna pink in core, and then I'm like, wait. You can certainly build something like Skystar Blue in core and Adventure and Harmony, and they will probably all even look fairly similar. But of course, as you get into wider and wider formats, it gets more potentially high powered, but also potentially less interesting, because sometimes the availability of cards in older formats just doesn't just kind of dunks on stuff.
Yeah, and I'll admit certainly that Harmony is the format I'm least excited to work in these days. I do still have some Harmony decks to get through,
but there's so many options for cards.
Like,
how many of them are good?
A reasonable number.
Well, so that depends on what you're up to. So I believe, Cursed, you tend to try to keep archetype diversity in each deck as well, if you can.
To the extent possible, yes.
Excuse me, but
yes. I can look up my Bluna decks and see if I did anything other than aggro. I don't know.
Right. I mean, that's probably fair. But I think especially in Harmony, I think you have an even worse time in Harmony because, yes, hypothetically, there was only maybe 150 cards out of the 1,000-ish card pool that are really worth considering for competitive play. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, unless you're doing something really wacky.
Or like combo, in which case you have to look at all 1,000 of those cards and just be like,
Yeah, and you tend to circle back to the standbys eventually. Your Breezies and your what was the name of that set? The Celestial Solstice mains that cards that enable so many combos.
Rising Sun, Setting Moon.
Yeah. So I suppose that's not too surprising.
But by the same token, combo is always such a bespoke creation that you do tend to have to be trawling through the dregs of Ponyhead to find something.
Yeah.
It's not always until you find the one weird interaction. Tournament organizers hate it. That something happens. But combo, I think, is interesting here because would it be fair to ask if you've got some decks that you're most proud of? Because I think you've got a little bit of a theme here.
Yeah. So I guess for those who don't know me very well, and I'm going to use some Magic terminology, but I'm sure it's come up before on this stream. I am very much a Johnny deck builder. For those unfamiliar with the terminology, I like cool interactions and unique stuff. And combo always checks all those boxes.
Yeah.
As long as you're not copying something that someone else did.
Right. Because you don't necessarily need it to win every game, but that one time it works.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have accomplished everything I set out to do.
I was about to say the same thing.
And so like when I started out the series, yes, I wanted to cover all of the archetypes to the extent possible, and combo was the most intimidating one because, like, I was exposed to many of the combo decks that kind of come out at the time, and they looked like such beautiful, intricate machines that I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And the first one that I created was something that came up totally by accident. You can probably throw it up now. So I'm gonna leave it to the audience to try to work out what is even going on here.
The dreaded left as an exercise to the viewer.
Pretty much, yeah. So basically, it was the holidays. I don't remember if it was the week before Christmas or Christmas itself, and I just decided to kind of goof around basically, and wanted to see, is there a way that I can use this main, Lyra, the one that I had, to do some infinite shenanigans. And to the extent that I succeeded, I have no idea. I never actually played this deck. But it is, I believe, like as I explained in the article, it is a non-deterministic combo. There's no way to know if you're gonna pull it off when you start. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Do you generally play test your decks before you post them, or was this just one that you didn't bother play testing because of the nature of it?
So I have, over the course of the series, at several moments, thought to myself, I really ought to be playtesting these. And sometimes I have, like, started up semi-regular meetups with some people in the community to do that, but it always kind of falls apart at some point. In particular lately, with how time has become. So the general answer to the question is no. I don't test the decks, but I really realize that I should. Because there's always so much that you can discover from actually playing with the set of cards that you might not have been able to theorize about when you're just looking at it on Ponyhead or whatever.
How many of these have you ended up playing in tournaments?
I think it's probably somewhere around a dozen. So the first one that I ever played in a tournament was the Princess Cadence list that I brought to an Everfree once. That's and that's the old Cadence, not the new one. Yeah, which, like, at the time, again, that was just there's a tournament coming up. I believe it was a popper event. I have no idea what I'll use. I'll just use whatever I roll that week. And of course, I rolled Cadence after making that declaration. So yeah, there was that.
Oh, this was Cadence.
The Cadence that remains infamous.
Yeah. Oh, I think I have a link for this here. Let's see if this is the right one.
Oh, for the actual deck?
Yeah.
It's a good thing RS saves literally everything.
Loving Ruler? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so this was a popper event. High Magic, I guess, by the looks of it. I think, did I win a game? I might have won a game with this.
Did you flip the main?
I have yellow Parasprite.
You won a game because you are not in absolute last place.
All right. I'm quite certain that I never flipped the main. I might have gotten like 2 counters on it. I pretty much ignored that this main was, well, except for the one white.
Poor Cadence. Hey, but we've got playtime's over now. Just saying.
This is a true statement.
Do you ever truly win with Loving Ruler when she hasn't flipped?
I mean, maybe.
I'm gonna say yes because I did.
Proof by
good
demonstration.
Good answer.
So there was that, and then for a long time, I think, like, just as the Coco stuff was getting started up, and I was playing in them regularly, I would just enter whatever my deck for that week was. for a while. So those were some of the ones that actually got playtesting after they were published, admittedly, but some amount there. And then yeah, broadly so. If it's not an important tournament, it's generally what I do today too. If I'm going to a con and the deck I'm building that week works for the tournament, then I'll just try to run that. Which has made things interesting because now I'm introducing the additional restriction that it has to consist of cards I own rather than just stuff on Ponyhead.
Yeah, and I mean that's always a good way to go into some of these maybe lighthearted tournaments. You just don't have to run the best thing. Run what's fun.
Yeah, Cheese, run what's fun.
I mean, that's what's fun for Cheese, is go home.deck and making everyone else knife. But that's certainly a place where you can take in something maybe a little less high-tier competitive. Some more thought experiment things.
Yeah. And often enough, well, I don't know about often, but sometimes you learn something about that deck, about that meta. I see some interaction in there that gives a inspiration for something that comes next in the series, or whatever. I guess to circle back, because we got a little bit distracted from the combo tangent, because this is a thread that I kind of wanted to expand on. So after that first combo at Christmas time, it kind of became a thing then, a tradition of sorts, that every year around Christmas I would try to do some ridiculous combo deck as my holiday for the year, basically, air quotes. And so that was where the next two combo decks came from. I don't know if we want to... Yeah, so this is the next one that came after that. This one is... Right, this was, from the days when Exact Duplicate wasn't banned. Broadly, I think... I'll go through this one loosely. Broadly, this was... It was the same thing that you did with Exact Duplicate as before. Like going exponential on AT generation. But the trick was that Capper was your recursion engine. And you just always had to unflip him each time. Aside from Exact Duplicate, every card in the deck's even. So, fairly realistic on that.
Huh, yeah, okay. 0, of course, being an even number.
Yep. And then the year after that, there was the Discord thing, and that one I've lost the link to the article for it. So this is the one that I have no idea what it was trying to do. It was actually.
Is this a combo?
Yes, there is one clue, I suppose.
I mean, it has showdowns.
Right. So the name of the deck was Point Acceleration for the Rest of Us. That's the clue. and that didn't help me at all either.
It's not... You don't have the capability to make clones of stuff.
I mean, Daybreaker and Fashion Week is probably the win con, but I'm trying to decide how you make that happen multiple times.
I mean, it's point acceleration.
And we've got Starlight, so Magic Instructor stands out. But of course, copying showdowns doesn't do anything.
Nope.
It might be that I just didn't realize that. That's a possibility.
Yeah, looks like you can only play Fashion Week up to 5 times. Which is 10 points. Plus 3 off Magic Duel.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Water under the bridge. And then, the only other combo deck that I'm particularly proud of, out of all out of all these was, after that third year, the tradition kind of fell apart because I think that was when the schedule started falling apart. But there was what I like to call the Matilda loop. I don't know if anyone else has a different name for it. This is the only combo deck that I've actually used out of these, and I think when I used it, I did manage to make it go off, and I scored like 10 or 11 points with it, which is, well, that's a lot, but by definition, you don't win the game with this combo. So
Right.
that's always the trick. Yeah.
Right, because Matilda can't do that.
You can get up to 14
but she'll
or something.
She'll even the field real fast, though.
Yeah, you can get up to whatever your opponent is.
Oh, okay. So you don't have a way to like make your opponent gain points.
Yeah.
It's all about the timing.
It's all about how much risk you're willing to take, and having a way to score some after that point. Best case scenario, you have some AT left over, you mismained it out, or confront a problem, or whatever.
Yeah, good old mismain there. So those are some rather unusual engines. So if you're looking for some inspiration for strange combos to unload on people, look no further.
I mean, you can. At the same time, the message I've sent about combo in the stream is do your own thing. Find your own inspiration. But if anyone uses anything I've created, I wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, there's only, well, so many engines that exist in the game. And certainly if you've got as many decks, especially if you're trying to focus on combo as you have, you're gonna find most of them, I think. So.
Yep. Though you never know when someone finds something else. Heartfelt Apology, after all, that was a card that you guys made.
Yeah.
That one was GP's fault, though.
Yeah.
100%. And it's not because he's just not here to defend himself.
No, it's totally because he's not here to defend himself. Come on.
All right, and then I guess to round off decks that I'm proud of, there's only one that rises to the top of everything. Not a combo deck, but it is still, I think still my favorite deck that I've ever made, and that's what was called Strawberry Season back in the day. So yeah. And the main is irrelevant. When I actually played this, I think I played it with Fluttershy Reformer, or wait, it might have been that yellow Discord main actually. I don't even remember what it does now. But it needs to be a yellow main, I think, for this formulation. But yeah, this is yellow-pink control.
Yeah.
Strawberry Sunrise and troublemakers that do things when they flip over. If you've got a lot of AT, it can work.
Yeah. No, I remember Strawberry Sunrise. The art on that card was chosen extraordinarily deliberately, given the function of the card.
I actually never thought about it that way before, but that does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. That it's very good at hosing farm, and AJ's expression there.
Yeah.
This is also a fairly old one too, because there's some cards in here that are.
There is one banned card.
There are two banned cards.
Yeah, there's the other one.
Which makes sense because codependent pairs of cards that need to leave the meta.
Yep. So admittedly, in this era, most decks I don't think included both of those cards. You
No.
tended to see one or the other, not both in the same list.
Well, I mean, it takes a true mad lad to break new ground. So
So anyway,
yeah, seems fine.
yeah, it's remained one of my favorite things to do with this card. It's never going to be competitive. I'm pretty sure it's too AT expensive in colors that are not going to have access to enough AT to use it. And the control tools in yellow in general are not good. Yeah, with the exception of Spooky Ruins, I guess.
Yeah, it does have some new tools. So, new tools actually brings up maybe an interesting question here. Are there decks that you wish you could redo with the advent of new cards or meta changes?
Yeah, so this is a hard question to answer, because unfortunately, with the exception of strawberries, I don't get too attached to most of my decks. And I guess a lot of that comes down to the not playtesting them part. They do tend to just kind of fall out of my mind after I'm finished running them. So, unfortunately, I don't have a great answer to that question. Because there are over 200 of them to look through. Like, the answer is probably, certainly. Certainly stuff from the olden days when the Odysseys block basically didn't exist and it was all pretty much all just absolute Discord and Equestrian Odysseys if you wanted half decent cards. But I'm afraid I can't point at any specific examples.
Yeah, that's fair.
There is, I suppose, one matter that came up like when we were talking about the combos that I want to make mention of, and that is naming, because that's one of the things that I set myself as an additional restriction over the whole series. Is that
each deck has to have a name?
Every deck has to have a name, yes.
And that's the most important part of any deck, is how grown-worthy the name is.
Pretty much. And I think I was kind of just naive at that point, because like every deck that got posted on Reddit or whatever always had a name. So a deck's got to have a name, right? Yeah, right? And
Does it?
Well, I think it works kind of like...
I think it's fair to say that used to be an expectation.
It was.
It kind of was. I think it's gotten to the point where it works like naming does in Dwarf Fortress. Like, you need to be notable enough, and then you get names, and as you keep like racking up wins, your name gets longer and you start getting titles. I think we should like instate this. Just start tacking honorifics onto the front of a deck's name as it starts taking more wins.
Be an interesting way to do it. But yeah, and so naming is really hard, especially because I would usually leave it as the last thing that I would do in a deck's construction process. And oftentimes I'd be looking at this pile of cards and there's no real theme to it. Like, in my opinion, the best names are ones that manage to capture the sort of theme of the deck. Like it's a farm deck, it's a control deck, it's an aggro deck, while also containing information about kind of the cards that make that deck really good. Potentially a call out to the deck's sort of signature card. And then on top of that, keep it pithy, keep it short. If you can make a pop culture reference, even better.
And puns, of course, are the holy grail.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a long list of restrictions.
Right. I mean, it is. Naming stuff is hard just as is, but when you want real quality out of it, it gets difficult. Are there any that you're particularly proud of?
Oh, there's a lot of them. Well, there's a lot of decks. There's not as many that I'm particularly proud of.
But what about the names?
Yeah. Like, is there a name or two that just kind of sticks as being like, that was clever?
Well, there's the one name that I stole from Grandpa's that he actually called me out on afterwards. Well, yeah, some variation on the whole waking nightmare, unending nightmare thing.
Oh, I mean, I don't think you can really be blamed for that, though. Like, Luna and Nightmare Moon are just kind of right there. Just being like, hi, I'm dark and brooding.
Yeah. So, some names are like really obscure references. I don't know how proud I can be of those, because if nobody gets it, then that kind of defeats the point of it. But one that stands out to me is, let me just make sure this is the deck I think it is. Yeah, so it's a song focused deck. It's got, geez Louise, 10 different songs in it. Well, no, 10 song cards. No, 11 song cards, and they're all the new ones. They're all tricolors. So it's really hard.
There's a just playing that, I think, is going to be kind of impressive.
Yeah. And so it was. So the name of the deck is. Give it a second to see if anyone gets it. The name of the deck is open parenthesis with a swing, close parenthesis. That's really obscure. I don't know if anyone's going to get it.
With a swing?
With a swing, yes.
I can already tell you I don't get it.
Okay, let's take a look at this thing. What do we got going on here? That's a
suppose...
lot of tricorns. That's a lot of 3-color things.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So very song focused. I think this was from the era of like, I need to build a Student 6 deck, but I don't want it to be Reanimator, so what do I even do? Or at least not completely Reanimator. Obviously, we're kind of reanimating a little bit.
Right, I mean, you've got the stuff for it, you might as well. I have a couple of like really weak guesses, but
no, it is a specific culture thing that you need to be aware of. So it's totally understandable. There is I'm gonna spoil it here. There's a famous, depending on who you ask, recording from the big band era, where Count Basie played Carnegie Hall, and the music that they played to end the song off was the title of that track was "Sing Sing Sing" with a swing in brackets. So it's a reference to the kind of the clue of the real deck, the real name of the deck being "Sing Sing Sing."
Fairly. All right, yeah.
We'll give that one to you.
Yeah.
It's
High culture. Capital A art.
Depending on how you define that. Yeah, I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time looking through these, so that's the one that I'll share as having a name that's kind of interesting.
Well, that's cool though. So you've done a bunch of these things. Are there any particular combinations of, well, in some cases just straight up mains, or maybe sets of restrictions that you're just kind of dreading, or never ever want to go look at again?
Well, as I made it clear in, I think it was the last post that I made, I am absolutely over the moon to be completely done with the Crystal Games mains. Those all sucked.
Yeah, they kind of did. Derpy's
Yup.
Derpy's the only one who attempted to escape that particular gravitation well.
I will never understand those mains.
Well, sometimes you take a shot.
Yeah, it was a shot made on, I suppose, on a experiment of like, well, what about if people flip their mains like late in the game rather than early? And it was a bad idea, unless you have a way to force your main to flip. But anyway, the long answer is that I've actually found that there were 3 kinds of mains that I dreaded having to get to. So first, there were the ones that were just completely useless, which I already mentioned. The Crystal Games mains, after the first confront rules, the Premier Rarity, I still have to do a deck for it, and it basically doesn't work anymore.
I think
that rules change.
I think that one you're allowed to sit there and say, no, we're gonna ignore that rule for now. As a lady of high society, I'm allowed to do what I want.
Yeah. As much as it hurts my soul to say it, the ultra rare Celestia from Camelot Knights, I really hated having to do that. And
oh yeah,
yeah.
So there was those, and then the second kind are mains that were very good and obviously very good at doing one specific thing. Because I wanted, like, especially once I got to 3, I wanted each of these decks to be unique and different. The first deck was super easy. The second and third ones is just like, what are you supposed to do? These mains are like, they're typecast into doing one thing. How do you do something different?
Oh yeah, you pull up with Professor Sparkle and it's just like, how do
Let's
you
make
not...
an aggro deck with this.
Wait, this doesn't work. This is terrible. You're 1 purple and that's all you're good for.
Yep. You want to try building control with Octavia, or anything other than bringing big stuff into play with Paradox Pony before it got banned.
there are some bad combinations.
I don't think we actually banned Paradox Pony. Just very rare that it gets used.
I'm pretty sure it got properly banned.
Did it?
Might be misremembering these. I'll have to look into that later.
So anyway, that's group 2. And then the third group are the mains, which are extremely versatile and popular.
Vinyl.
Yes. The mains where it seems like everybody else has already done everything under the sun you could possibly do with this thing. So how am I going to make something fresh that no one else has seen before? So yeah, DJ, Skystar, Tempest, all of those. Yeah, those ones were really, really hard to work with too.
Yeah, because you've got to dodge all of the precedent, I guess is how I'll put it.
Yeah. And like, especially things that sit in a really well optimized niche too. Like, that was another thing that I wanted to avoid, is posting a deck that's just a suboptimal version of a meta deck. Because then, like, what's my article going to be about? I chose to make these decisions because even though I know the deck is worse than this other one, well, yeah, how am I going to justify that?
Yeah, that kind of hurts. So, yeah, understandable. Which, of course, means that on some of those you have to push them into strange archetypes that work in very unusual ways.
Yeah, exactly so. So, like, remove those 3 versions. The mains I actually liked to use tended to be ones that were not popular, but still valuable, provided some value to the game, and like pointed in some direction. And funnily enough, what that has meant in most contexts is white mains. Interestingly enough, because they tend to get so little use just in general.
Yeah, there's some abilities on those that you can use if you get creative with them.
Yeah. So one of my favorites actually is it the Defenders? It's not the Defenders one. It's the
Booming Business.
Booming Business. That's the one. Yes. I think there's a deck here.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the one that puts a unicorn token into play on your opponent's side. And with her, it always came down to that T-Rex troublemaker that forces your opponent to confront it if they're capable of doing so. If they have a character there, which
right.
Hey, I can drop a character there for you.
Here, have a unicorn token.
Don't mind all these other unicorn tokens I have at that problem. It'll be fine.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Please give me AT.
There's so much AT. All right, that's pretty good. I'm a little. I don't see a copy of Bonade in here, which would be funny, but I suppose that card on its own is has its own challenges.
Yeah, tends to shape the deck around it itself. What is missing is, and it might be because it might not have been around. Actually, no, New Dawn stuff is in here. What is missing is Son Smirk, and naming unicorn token for the extra DM to the opponent.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna have a unicorn token everywhere. It's just like, go ahead. Sorry, no.
No,
just no. So you've built quite a bit of stuff, like many archetypes, and often some very unusual things. So how is your experience going through adventures in deck building shaped your deck building strategies when you're looking to be maybe a bit more competitive?
Right, and the interesting thing to that is, I guess, like I kind of already said it before. Broadly speaking, I kind of left. Well, I shouldn't say left. I don't look at the competitive meta as much anymore when I build decks, and it's a function of many things, time and stuff. In general, when I'm rolling up to a tournament like Continentals or whatever, I do. And I know this is kind of a cardinal sin to say that in this community, I do tend to net deck and just pull whatever has been working and feels like my kind of thing off of the meta.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
I do it all the time.
Yeah, but this whole process has lent itself to a number of lessons. I guess I didn't actually explain this at the start, but the main reason why I started doing adventures, the main reason I started doing it was because I had been living in Vancouver. It was when I first encountered the game and learned how to do it. And then I moved back to Winnipeg, and there was a local group there that I was able to play with. But at the year that I started, I was moving to Calgary, where, so far as I was aware, there was no group, and I never found one. And I wanted to have a way to try to stay sharp and sharpen up my skills.
Right.
Which I think, looking back at the archive, you can tell we're lacking. I have no qualms in admitting that the early decks I made were really bad. But yeah, after all this time, I definitely have learned some lessons. Some pretty big ones. And so I think, broadly, I guess I can just kind of go through the categories. Adequately preparing for the breadth of matchups. Like, that's a pretty basic one, but understanding that you need to have something in your deck to deal with farm, something to deal with control, something to deal with aggro, etc. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just kind of have to accept that a particular matchup is going to be bad. But that's something that you need to be thinking about as you're doing your deck construction.
Right, keeping the metagame clock in mind.
Yeah. One that came on far too late for me, well, I mean, I don't know what late per se, but anyway, was managing the requirement curve of the deck, especially when you're going tricolor or more than that. There's nothing worse than having a deck. Well, I don't know about nothing worse, but it's not great to have a deck where like you've got a lot of 3-color requirement and all your entry is 2, right? And now you need to have 2 pieces of entry to play anything. That's
not great, no.
Yeah.
And it's even worse if you're up against a meta that's very removal heavy.
Exactly so. Yeah, and in a world where you can't count on your friends to stick around and provide their requirement. So yeah, like being really aware of the numbers in the requirement spaces and not just the colors and how much entry you have for each of them is something that I started doing, well, yeah, not as far ago in the past as I really should have. One is having win conditions for control decks. A lot of times in the past, the deck would just be full of removal and control tools, and people would ask me, rightly, well, okay, sure, but how are you going to win?
You've successfully stalled the game at 0-0 for 35 minutes, now what?
Exactly.
The goal is to make the opponent lose, obviously.
Yep.
I mean, that's my line.
Yeah, at the kitchen table, you can get away with, well, we're just going to keep going until you get too frustrated and concede. But in tournaments, you've got to...
Not so much.
Yeah.
And I definitely remember some of those kitchen table games where it was back and forth for 2 hours before somebody finally ran out of resources and managed to have their wall fall over.
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, you have to go against Hithrock if you want that. I can say that because he's not here to object.
No, I think even he would agree that most people just don't have the patience for 3-hour slogs.
I mean, it's its own form of interesting, but you have to like really be into the like thought processes and analyzing the play lines. It's not quite as I want to say flashy as an aggro match where it's just I'm gonna kick your shins. Ow! Why are you kicking my shins? I'm gonna kick your shins for that.
Yeah, and to his credit, he is really, really good at that kind of game style, and obviously that helps if you want to enjoy it.
Yes, Hithrock is extraordinarily good at that kind of thing, which is why he's an absolute terror to go up against in Among Us.
And I guess, yeah, to circle back, the fourth thing that I'm still learning is how to sideboard properly. Like, when that rule first came in, I was just like, oh, great, now I only have to cut my deck down to 50 cards rather than 45. This is going to save me so much time.
And then it took you... How long did it take you to go from that to like, oh no, I've made a horrible mistake?
Well, all that it takes is to actually sit down and play the deck and realize that you've just kicked your decision-making on those last 5 cards down to the start of a game rather than back with Ponyhead, yeah.
Yeah, you pull up in the chair and set your deck down and then look at your 50-card deck and just go, crap.
Yeah. And so, and of course, you guys had to go and change it and print Leia's Greatest Creation or whatever that white card is that now changes what a sideboard is capable of being.
Put every single ounce of that blame on Grandpa's, and that's not just because he's not here to say it himself about it.
No, that card was, I will admit, that card was 100% his idea.
Yeah, that card will mess with things, but I don't think it's going to mess with things quite as bad as you hope or
It'll
fear.
mess with your head a lot more than it'll mess with the game.
Yeah, that card is not a. It's very unusual. That card is going to hurt you a lot more than it's going to hurt your opponent, I think. You're causing psychic damage to yourself.
That's a reasonable way of putting it, yeah. But anyway, yeah, the broad takeaway is
sideboards.
Yeah. Your sideboard is not just an extra 5 cards that you can put in your deck. It is a way to have cards that are only going to be useful in certain matchups. And I guess it kind of comes back to the first lesson of thinking about the meta and thinking about which cards are going to be good in certain contexts.
Yeah. And you are possibly uniquely positioned to think about that one, especially because you also run the TIA system.
It's true. Yeah. I do have a fairly extensive archive of decks to go back and look at, and also, to understand what is up at the moment. Sorry, was that supposed to be a way for me to shill Tia, or?
I mean, would you like it to be a way to shill Tia? The opportunity's here. You need only take it.
If you pay attention to the subreddit as well, I also post the Tia ratings every so often, which is a metric of the decks that are doing well in each of the format's metagames at any given time. I'll also put announcements in Discord when new numbers go up.
Put a link in the chat real quick here.
But anyway, those are broadly the categories of things that stand out to me as big changes in my deck building style since I started doing this.
That's neat. I think those are valuable lessons that aspiring deck builders should probably take heed. The entry curve one, you got to learn that. If you don't learn that one by someone explaining it to you, and you have to learn it the hard way, that one's rough.
Yeah, that is one thing that I can say. Playing limited is actually a great way to learn that, because chances are you're going to find at least a couple times where you end up with a pile of cards that your requirements just don't work, and it's a great low stakes environment to teach yourself that lesson.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think I've got one maybe final bundle of questions for you here. So, like we said, you've been doing this for 8 years. So, is there any advice that you'd share to yourself from 8 years ago as a player, as a deck builder, even as a content creator for the CCG?
Well, I suppose the number one piece of advice is don't assume you're going to be able to keep doing this forever, because I did, and things changed, and now it's a, well, as I say, I'm committed to finishing it, but it's been much more sporadic lately, which, don't take that as advice to not start things, but understand that in 8 years your life is going to change.
There is a lot of time between now and then.
Obviously the 4 big pieces of deck building advice that I just went through.
Right. One of those even transcends into like advice when you're playing. The metagame knowledge is interesting.
Yeah, pretty much. I think from a content creator perspective, and this is actually advice that some people have given me sometimes. So I guess I haven't explained this yet. I don't have a schedule of mains to get through. I just roll a new one whenever I finish the old one. And so that means there's no planning ahead. You've just 1 week to go through. And I don't know if that's necessarily been good or bad. If I had planned ahead and like written out the whole schedule beforehand, then maybe I could have put time towards decks that were coming up, and maybe put out some slightly more high quality stuff, possibly. But at the same time, it keeps with the spirit of the exercise to have 1 week for every main, and yeah.
Right, and it also gets where the thing, you don't end up getting overwhelmed. You don't have to worry about this huge number in front of you. You only have to worry about what the dice say for the next couple of weeks, and that's a lot easier to think about sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, well, yeah, that's if you put this kind of big task before you and define it as a giant spreadsheet, that can be super intimidating rather than doing it as one step at a time. That's definitely how I managed to get through, as we said, first 128 without any gaps.
Yeah, it's a little bit more difficult if you need to come up with a coherent narrative for the next, 2 months. It's just like, that can get hard. So I guess the piece of advice there is pace yourself and don't risk burning out.
Yeah. But at the same time, don't be afraid to be audacious, and set yourself a goal that you think you might not be able to achieve, so long as you're willing to do it in manageable chunks. Because I know when I first proposed this whole thing to people, some people were a little bit like, "Man, 1 deck for every main in the game? That's a lot of mains, isn't it?" But well, it seemed a worthy goal to shoot for.
Yeah. Well, anything else you've got on the top of your mind?
I think I've kind of gotten through all of the notes that I made, and all of the kind of notable decks that we wanted to get through. There is no deck this week. End off with a whimper. I wanted to try to hopefully, like, I had thought maybe, I'll unveil this week's deck at this stream. That'll be great. No, didn't have time to make it. But I guess the only thing I can say is watch out on the subreddit and in the Discord announcements on Fridays. And those are where the next ones will be. The next one is the white chrysalis. No, that's not specific enough. The new white chrysalis.
I mean, I'm fine with this either way. Which actually would have been kind of thematic, because I think it's Chrissy Day today or yesterday.
That's right, it is. Oh my goodness, I should have remembered that. Yeah, I've got 20, 25 or so left to go. Still haven't done the new Luna ever. That's kind of weird. Probably going to be a whole big rush of her at the end, but oh well.
The Yuna.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that one might be interesting, because she obviously lends herself much more to farm, and it'll be interesting to see how she functions in other archetypes.
Well, I mean, we already know how she controls. That's been done by someone on this channel.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I expect a little bit of farm, a little bit of control, a little bit of aggro, maybe.
Maybe some aggro. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. As always, it'll depend on what feeling takes me that given week. Certainly the next few, given that I haven't done many with the second spin of Prize Wheel around, will probably be focusing on those cards, to the extent possible. So I guess there's that to look forward to as well.
It'll be interesting to see how those get used. But, well, I think that's about all we had. So, I think the next big thing that you're up to is invitationals, and I will just have to wait and see how that goes. I don't think I got enough TIA points this year. That's
Are
what...
you gonna be at?
Oh yeah. Let's ask the big question.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
That. Yes. Yes. That's there. I've been kind of in discussion and thinking about it with people, and yeah, I believe that I am going to be at Everfree.
Cool.
Amazing. It will have been quite some time.
Yeah, actually. Gee. Well, wait. I was at last year's Everfree, right? I think I was.
That's still quite some time.
It is. That's a year. Yeah. For those who don't know, I guess there'll be more information about the Invitational coming up through August. There is still time. The Winnie City results that just got posted actually will count because there were 8 people at that event.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's OnlineCon this month. And I think probably just Continentals after that.
I think Continentals is almost certainly going to be the end or the last thing after the OnlineCon. I don't think there's enough time to squish anything else in there.
Yeah.
So you can look forward to the end of the tournament competitive season, and then comes the fun one.
Yeah, the 3 months of yeah, 3 months. It always is in the Invitational. Enough time has passed that I'm excited again.
That's good. I mean, it's always interesting to see how those go. The run up to that it's something else. It's charged with energy. And
yeah,
so,
I'm really pleased at how much of a fixture it's become in the calendar.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think it's about time to wrap this up. I think we're pretty close to the end here. I think we're running kind of low on topics that we need to discuss in the immediate future. So thank you for stopping by, and thank you for taking the time to chat with us about adventures in deck building, and hopefully get some more people checking that out because there's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah, I suppose there isn't. I used to link the archive on the deck list. I suppose I don't do that anymore. I perhaps will start doing that again. If you want to look at any of the old decks, I don't have links to all the old articles, although I guess they are all on that Tumblr.
Tumblr, yeah. I found out the hard. Are they? Because some of the very old ones were just Reddit posts, if I remember right.
The very old ones were just Reddit. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can all find those. I also found out the hard way that Tumblr really does not like you scrolling back in history.
Yeah.
So the archive is actually very valuable for people interested in looking at older stuff.
And you get to see all the cringeworthy names.
Not I did. Yeah. Not they're not cringeworthy. They're grown-worthy. Because if what you're doing is making yourself grown 8 years later, that's a win for 8 year earlier you.
Broadly so, yeah. So, anyway.
But, like I said, thank you for taking the time. And we should definitely have a link to Meticulous Talks. If you enjoy Cursed's content, I should send you over to Meticulous Talks, where you can have even more. I should send you over to Meticulous Talks,
and
where you can have even
with
more.
extra Hithrock.
I should send you over to Meticulous Talks.
And
amazing. Twitch is... I forgot that the two streams are set up to host each other.
Oh, right. Yeah. Fair enough.
So there's a link to Meticulous Talks. Oops. So go check them out. They're also worth following. Following Twitch. And I think your archives are all on YouTube, if memory serves correctly.
All on YouTube, yes. We stream on Saturday nights, to the extent possible on weekends where you guys are not streaming also. Broadly similar content, fair amount of tournament review. Sometimes we chat about hypothetical changes to make to the game, or go over decks that we've built, or raid cards. Yes, those are the broad topics. Also lots of Trixie, but that's what you expect.
That's just part and parcel of existing near Hithrock.
Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure we've shilled all of my things now.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our discussion on this topic today. We'd like to give a big shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your regular support, including number one right here. If you aren't currently a patron and enjoy what we do consider signing up, as doing so enables us to continue picking content like this and lets you earn some great perks as a bonus. If you like what we do, maybe consider going and throwing a little love to Meticulous Talks too.
It'd be nice.
If you have comments or questions you'd like to send our way, please feel free to reach out to us through Facebook, Twitter, email, or Discord or Slack if you're a patron, where you can normally chat with us any day, any time, depending on the quality of our sleep schedules. Currently, not too bad. You know what, I say that and I was up until like 6 a.m. reading a book. As you do. Finally, if you're looking to watch any of our previous videos, including tournament recordings, you can find them on our YouTube channel, linked just below the stream. With that all said, thank you to each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. We are, as always, Commentary is Magic.
Big cheese.
Cat.
I'm Ivory, and I do want to confirm Paradox Pony is not banned.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Maya. Yeah, that means I have to make another deck for it. Ooh.
Sorry.
Well, I've been Cursedchords.
Once again, thank you for taking the time for us today.
As I said, always a pleasure.
Well, I think that's it for us. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.